This is the Last Minute Blues Podcast with Donnie, Alex, Jeremy, and Jeff Burton.
It is the Last Minute Blues Podcast. Donnie Fandango joined in studio by Alex Ferrario. And we got to give a shout out to our dude, Jeremy Rutherford. Jeremy is in Seattle right now. He's flying out of Seattle in the next 30 minutes or so. He tried like the Dickens to join us on the podcast, but we're having some technical difficulty that keeps JR from joining us. But we thank him very much for getting his ass up super early in Seattle to help us.
He hates us, Donnie. 2-hour time difference after a game. Luckily, the game wasn't a 7 o'clock game because then he would really hate us. At least he was somewhat decent in, 3:30 game. He didn't have to get up too early.
Dude, at 7 a.m. his time, he is messaging us back and forth, ready to friggin' roll, man.
Yep.
To roll. And we just could not make it happen.
JR hates technology just like we hate technology after something like that.
Hey, real quick here before we get started, I just want to make sure, I just want to double check before we get this going and have to stop. You did put your car in park before you came up.
I knew this for the last 2 days. Every time I've turned a corner in this building. And look, I deserve it. I deserve all of the crap for it. But all of the, hey, did you put your car in park today? Hey, did you put your car in park today? Yes, I put the car in park. And for those that don't know, Grant Francis put it out on social media. My dumb self forgot to put the car in park.
Well, and so the thing that was kind of, all right, now that it's you, I don't know, it's still pretty damn funny.
No, it's still funny.
So we get an email, like we're both on air.
A company-wide email.
A company-wide email that goes to
Hubbard
everybody.
Radio in St. Louis.
Hey, if this is your van, your car is not in park.
And you know what the sweet spot of it is, all Donnie? It was my wife's vehicle. And in the email, it said, hey, if you're driving a so-and-so vehicle with a pink Disney sticker on it. So everybody in this building, it's like, pink Disney sticker. And then I'm just very grateful the entire radio station didn't send another email that said, thanks, Alex Ferrario, for putting your car back in park. Because at least maybe there's somebody in this building that's like, oh, I wonder who that was.
So, I see this email, and I just start chuckling. And I'm like, oh, what is going on here? And then, kind of as it builds, I'm like, and I'm, following on Twitter, I find out it's you, and then I, start to kind of feel a little bit bad about how absolutely entertained I was by that.
No, you should have been entertained by that because my dumb self, and I've had these moments before where it's like you forget to turn your headlights off, you forget to put the car in park, you forget to, unlock your car before you leave or something like that. I've done it all. Sure as hell, I've never forgot to put my car in park, and it slowly rolled. I don't know how it happened, though, Donnie, because, my wife, I use my wife's car because when we're separated, she's got the van because she's got all 3 girls and needs the space.
Yeah.
And so I take her car. Her car has the shift to park. My van has the push the button. And so a little bit of an older school one. I haven't had a shift to park for probably 10 years in the vehicles that I've driven. And I was on the phone when I was driving here, and I was dealing with a medical insurance issue of a bill. And so you're enthralled in that conversation. And I just assumed when I pressed the off button, I pressed the park button. And I didn't. I forgot to shift it, pressed the off button, and then nothing beeped. And if it did beep, I didn't hear it. I must be going deaf maybe. So I walked out of that car from 8:45 when I got here until 11:50 when the email was sent. That car was just in drive. Now, thank the Lord that thing wasn't officially in drive, because, it would have in a matter of seconds hit something.
Yeah.
But instead, it must have shifted to neutral, or since the car was off, it just was slowly rolling. And God bless the Creve Coeur police officers that were out there, because they came out and put two 2x4 pieces of wood underneath the tire to stop it, because otherwise that thing would have backed into somebody's car.
Dude.
Yeah. I'm an idiot.
Alex, well, no, and I don't think it's you're an idiot. When I start thinking about it, I start going, the first thing I thought of is, this poor man has 3 small children. His brain is completely freaking fried.
Yeah.
Dude, I did laugh, but also in a very empathetic way.
It felt a little like, oh, poor guy.
Oh, buddy, boy.
Poor guy. Hey, I've never forgotten a child in the car.
Good.
It's the only thing I can pride myself on, because I've forgotten the keys of the car. I've now forgotten to put the car into park, and I've forgotten to turn the car off before, too.
Well, let's go ahead and keep that one.
Yeah. As long as the kids are coming out of the vehicle, we're good to go.
I think you're all right. I think you're all right.
We're good to go. Now I just need to put a sticky note on my dashboard that said, "Turn the car on to park, you idiot." The last 2 days, every time I parked it, Donnie, shifted it into gear, and I've just like stared at it for a couple of seconds, like we're good, right? Get out of the car, you watch it. It's like you know the golfers that are like, "Where's the wind?" I stand underneath, put my hand under the tire, be like, "We're good, right? Not rolling? Not rolling? All right, we're on."
You're going to be scarred for a long time, man.
It's in my mind now. It's just mind-numbing.
Well, I guess I could just have to thank you for one of the more entertaining things that I have experienced this week.
Apparently, I provide a lot of entertainment to this station. I've had so many people stop, how'd that happen? I don't know. I don't know how it happened.
And a big shout out to Marshall, one of our chief engineers here, who brought the problem to you and Mike Ryder's attention.
Yep. Yeah, and City Place, the building, I think somebody must have contacted them.
Yeah.
They contacted Marshall, and then the police officer that was out there was like, "Yeah, I ran the plates and want to see what idiot forgot to put the car in park," and I realized it was you, and I'm like, good.
And you can't fight something like that after that.
I just looked at him and I said, "I'm sorry, man. I don't do this very often."
Well, listen, so even though maybe that might not have been the high point of your week, we got our Blues begin the regular season yesterday with an afternoon matchup against Seattle. And first of all, it is and I'm not complaining because I really enjoyed watching a hockey game at 3:30 in the afternoon and being able to finish up dinner while I was doing it.
Yeah.
But it just seemed kind of a weird start time for day one. And I know that was to facilitate ESPN and their triple header and things. But, it wasn't like a rivalry or anything like that. But regardless, we got an afternoon game. We got a fantastic game, and the Blues get out of there with a win after game one, which pretty much only means that we're going to go 82.
Yeah, 82-0, and now you get 2 points. I think it was from Jordan Kyrou and Justin Falk. So congrats, ladies and gentlemen. They're both on pace for 162 points this season. Everybody get excited with that.
All right, so a few things here, and there was a big part of the game that I was listening to because I was running my daughter, of course, friggin' all the way around South County. Yeah. But, the first thing that struck me, man, is that first period and the first part of the second period where, honestly, Alex, I'm starting to think to myself, well, here we go again. Mm-hmm. The friggin' team comes out flat or lacking a certain amount of energy. Benner has to save their bacon over and over and over again. Oh, no.
Felt like last year.
Oh, no. But then, man, the tide turned really quickly, and in a couple of minutes, the Blues, turned that game on its side.
Totally. I actually thought the Blues came out as the better team. The first couple of minutes, Kyrou rings a goal off of the post, and then he rings another shot in the slot, which I think it was Pavel Buchnevich that took it, but Kyrou set it up. And you had a shot right in front of the crease. And I'm thinking, oh, damn, look at this offense. It was the Buchnevich, Kyrou, Texier line that was driving all of the offense. And you were inches away from that first shot from Kyrou going in, and you're thinking, what a start for the Blues. Mm-hmm. It felt a little like that didn't work in their favor, and then it was like, oh, geez, how are we going to get back into this one? And look, Seattle's got speed. There's no question about that. There was a couple of moments, though, in the end of that first period that the Blues couldn't get the puck out of their own zone. Mm-hmm. But then they also couldn't generate any offense. They'd get stood up at the blue line, and then it was like scrambling to try the puck once again. For me, it was a little bit of that afternoon start. Those are always odd, and I'm not making excuses. And
it's also the first game of the friggin' year. Yeah.
And even Holloway said it after the game. There were a little bit of nerves for a lot of us because it's the first game you're playing with St. Louis. And think about this. You had 6 new faces on the Blues roster. So I don't know if it was that. Overall, it didn't look pretty. Mm-hmm. And not to be Debbie Downer early on, I do think that's going to be some of this season for the Blues. It's going to take them a little bit of time to find their game. We saw that last year, but that's the luxury of having a Jordan Binnington. It keeps you in it, and then when you find your sea legs, can you finish and produce? And that's what they did, but they didn't have the zone entries. They didn't have the consistent offense. You saw that in Bannister breaking up that top line where he brought Buchnevich and Kyrou up with Robert Thomas, and I'm thinking, man, we're already going to get rid of the Buchnevich centerman experience. What's going on here? And then they went back to it. They stuck with it. And no coincidence, they found their offense in the second half.
Yeah, but at some point, didn't they bump Holloway up to that first line?
He played on the first line.
He played on the first line.
He started there. It was Holloway and Neighbors with Thomas. And then towards the end of that period, which, I get with Bannister.
Because you're trying to make something happen.
You had 0 shots for 10 minutes, I think. From 13:28 until the 3:06 mark, you didn't have a shot on goal. So, like, I get you changing it and trying to generate some offense. Everybody does that. It was just odd that they broke up the Buchnevich at centerman spot immediately, and they dropped Holloway down to play with Texier and Neighbors, and Holloway was in the middle. And it's like, what the heck is going on here? But then they went right back to it at the start of the second period, and they just kept it there the rest of the game. So it was just weird. I know you're trying to generate offense, but it's weird to just throw it out so fast and then go to another line. But, hey, it worked because they found some life in the second period, which to me was all because of your third and fourth line, not anything to do with your top two lines.
All right, so I'm going to kind of sort of be all over the place here as I normally am. But one of the things that I wrote, and it's so freaking crazy that you said what you just said, because I wrote, is this what we should expect from this team this year? Meaning that not only is it going to take us a minute, or the team, to find its way and to get its footing, but with the way this team is built, with the way that just we are where we are right now, we're probably going to have some roller coaster moments in this bad boy, aren't we?
Totally, because every line is new. Like, every line has a new chemistry to build. And I know some people hear chemistry and they're like, oh, yeah, whatever. To me, that's just hockey. Like, you got to find a way to work with your other players. Think about it. You've got Thomas playing with Holloway. Like, I know he was with Neighbors, but you still have Holloway. Buchnevich was playing with Texier. Buchnevich, not a normal centerman, and you're playing with a new face. Your third line had a Matthew Joseph on it, so Braden Shen's getting used to a Matthew Joseph. And then your fourth line had a Radek Fox centering it. Every single line had somebody who was new. That's going to take some time to figure out, like it or not. And that's why Grant Francis, our producer on the Blues broadcast, and I were talking about this during the game. That's why it was so infuriating throughout preseason that you only saw one game of what the line combinations look like. Like, I understand you want to get a lot of these young players some action, but, man, if you know that you've got new faces and you need chemistry, I try and get those guys as many games as possible together.
Yeah, but I understand completely what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but also don't you run the risk of one of these guys getting hurt?
Totally. You do.
You know, so it's that it's kind of a weirdo balance.
Well, look at Nylander with Toronto Maple Leafs. We talked about that last week of him getting injured. Like, you take that risk, which is scary, but you also take the risk of having a slow start out of the gates, which, look, everybody does. Like, offensively, it's not out. It's not right away. I know Florida scored a ton of goals last night against Boston. Utah scored 3 and then got 2 empty netters at the end of the game occasionally. But I think more times than not, if you don't have a line chemistry, or if you don't have a group of forwards that have played together for 3, 4, 5 seasons prior, you're going to have a little bit of getting used to on the ice.
It only makes sense.
And who knows if the preseason benefits that. Like, that's just me making an assumption. But I got to imagine if you're going to use Buch at center and know his wingers are going to be Kyrou and somebody else, you want to trial that a little bit. Because throughout the preseason, Kyrou was playing with Robert Thomas. And then you've got Dylan Holloway. And I know Dylan Holloway impressed. You started with Neighbors and Kyrou, and then I think Shen played up there a little bit to where he was playing with those guys. But if you know that you're going to have another winger with Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, like, you want to see those guys together at least 2 or 3 games so you could build some chemistry. But I do think you're going to have a lot of that this season. I think you're going to have a lot of doesn't come out of the gate fast enough, or another team pressures you early on, and then you've got to survive for a couple of minutes. And then when you do, you find your game. What was inspiring about that game last night was by the second period when they scored that first goal, Blues found their game. And from the moment that Kyrou scored that power play goal until the rest of that hockey game, Blues played to the system that you thought they were going to be playing.
And also, one of the things that obviously I loved, because I friggin' love this part of hockey.
Yeah.
But, Seattle scores that second goal, and then all of a sudden our Aussie friend decides that he wants to get a little pissy and start mixing it up. I love Nathan Walker.
Yep.
I understand the ceiling for Nathan Walker. I understand what Nathan Walker is. But I'll tell you what, there are very few Blues players that I have seen in my time in the last, say, 5 years that, listen, I understand, again, the type of player he is, but there is not a second that dude is on the ice that he is not busting his freaking ass. I just love what he brings to the table. And, man, I'll tell you what, I think that bottom 6 is going to be a friggin' nightmare for a lot of teams, and this makes me feel like we're a little bit deeper.
Yeah, you're absolutely deeper, and you nailed it, Donnie. We talked to everybody's good friend Greg Wyshynski yesterday on Became Ferrari. I know, everybody loves Greg Wyshynski. I think he's always fun to talk to, even if
he knows his stuff.
He does.
It's his winner-hater stuff that's That's why I'm a sour.
But you know why I love Greg? Because when he's wrong, he admits it. He's had come on a couple of times with us and said, like, look, I don't like Binner, but he played well last season. You can't deny it.
Yeah.
But I asked Greg yesterday how impactful a third and fourth line can actually be. Because, we talk about this all the time. I'm a big component of, like, the fourth line and it being impactful. But at the end of the day, if your best players aren't your best players, you're going to lose. Makes sense. But even Greg said, like, yeah, the difference for teams, if you want to compete, is having the third and fourth line that can be impactful. And they may not have been impactful offensively last night. But you don't win that hockey game if not for three players. Nathan Walker, Alexei Toropchenko, and Radek Faksa. Mm-hmm. You had Walker, basically, and we were talking with JR just to kind of get the nuggets since he wasn't able to come on with us. And he was talking with Nathan Walker last night, and Walker was like, yeah, Vince Dunn got my way, and so I figured I'd give it to him a little bit. And, like, Vince Dunn wasn't in his way. Walker went out of his way to make sure Vince Dunn was in his way, took a couple of hacks at him.
I love it.
Stir it up there. So that's a spark. And then Alexei Toropchenko in that same scenario grabs a hold of Yanni Gordon, gets into a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Two sparks immediately in the same scenario, and you're like, okay, and I wrote that down in my notes last night. Does this spark contribute to or do the Blues answer this spark? Because last year they didn't do it. There weren't a lot of times that the Blues would kind of take exception to post-whistle scrums. They would just shove, and then they'd skate away.
Yeah.
And in this one, it's like, okay, post-whistle, Walker, Alexei Toropchenko, all in the middle of it. And then go about 6 minutes later, Radek Faksa, who gets penalized on Adam Larson. Larson pushes him down, gets a hooking call. Faksa gets up and then just starts throwing haymakers at Adam Larson. Part of me was like, you idiot, you're going to get a matching penalty.
Right.
But they didn't because he drew Larson in to get another penalty. Then you get the power play, then you score. Faksa, Toropchenko, and Walker provide you something that you didn't have last season. Now, I know that Toropchenko and Walker were there last year and they tried, which is part of the reason your offense had to answer the call. But, I mean, you need to have guys with a little piss in their game to where it's like, no, you can't take an extra hack at me, take an extra hack at my goaltender, because you're going to have to answer for it. And Faksa, Toropchenko, and Walker all did that.
Man, and I feel like in the last couple of years, there have been multiple times that we have been like, oh, so somebody's going to take a run on Binner and nobody is going to do a damn thing.
2 years ago, Donnie, that Tampa Bay Lightning game, and I'm sure you remember this, the Blues, I think it was Robert Bortuzzo, off of the rush, took a shot and then an extra hack at Andrei Vasilevsky. All five Tampa Bay Lightning players dropped their gloves and their sticks and swarmed Robert Bortuzzo because he took one extra hack at Andrei Vasilevsky. That does not happen a lot for the Blues. Last night, one extra hack, I think it was at the end of the first period on Jordan Binnington, 5 players swarmed that guy. That's what you need. That's how you build that chemistry as a team on the ice, is you defend each other. And I believe with a Faksa who has a lot of piss in his game, with Matthew Joseph, who's played that way since he was in Tampa Bay, you already know Nathan Walker has that. You know what that does? It doesn't make Braden Shen have to do it every single night.
Yes.
It doesn't have to make a Justin Falk do it and potentially get injured. You've got guys who play into their role for this team, and that created the spark. And again, you need your offense to back it up. You don't score on that power play, probably a missed opportunity, and I don't know if those 3 goals happen in 2 minutes and 20 seconds. But you did score.
Yeah.
And that's what the Blues need to combat with those guys that can create a spark.
All right, so I want to talk about the new guys here in a second, but one of the things that you just said in the last couple of minutes was you need your best players to be your best players.
Yep.
Jordan Kyrou.
They did that.
What's up, brother? Like, I mean, listen, we have ragged on this guy the last couple of years. And not to say that he didn't deserve it and those kinds of things, but listen, credit where credit is due. If we get that guy that we had yesterday, more often than not, dudes, he's going to score 40 goals. I mean, that was a really fantastic game from the kid last night.
And he did it 2 different ways. He used his speed in every scenario, but he did it in his skill, and then he did it with his ability in the defensive zone to create offense. Power play goal was just pure skill. He had his speed through the neutral zone, great pass from Robert Thomas, and then he's off to the races. That's what Jordan Kyrou excels at. But if you go back and look at the breakaway goal that he had, where Texier gave him the outlet pass, Kyrou was working in the defensive zone to create that turnover. He, along with Buchnevich and Texier was the one that got it. They were in the defensive zone, and then it was outlet pass because Kyrou can use his speed, and he's off to the races once again.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen every night? Probably not. When you take on really good defensive teams, they're not going to allow you to get those breaks. We would have been talking this way about Kyrou last season if 3 or 4 of his shots went in the net. Remember, he was snake bitten last year.
You're right.
Like
I forget about that.
He hit
too.
a couple of crossbars and posts, and it's like, oh, come on, man. And you're thinking you got to finish. Last night he finished. I thought he played a really strong game. He was the best player on the ice with the exception of Jordan Binnington. But, I mean, for him, you know who he is. It's going to be about consistency. Because when you look to your best players, you can't go through an 8 to 10 game dry spell. And if you do, you have to have somebody pick you up. But, man, credit to Kyrou. Like, I remember in the offseason, people were asking about Kyrou, and Doug Armstrong was like, look, Jay Bouwmeester was a whipping boy for the Blues for the longest time. Yeah. Go back to Eric Brewer was a whipping boy for the Blues the longest time. And then they had their moment, and then it's like, well, you can't get rid of that guy. I don't know if that's going to happen for Jordan Kyrou, but I give him credit because he came into the season prepared to go. And, I mean, he was buzzing from start to finish. And he finished as a +1, which means they did not score against him when he was on the ice. It was a very impressive game for Jordan Kyrou, and he did that not playing with Robert Thomas and with Robert Thomas on that top line. He did it playing with Buchnevich and Texier.
Is Robert Thomas so good that we don't really fully appreciate all of the things in which that he does every night?
Oh, I think so.
He is so... And also, too, the passes. You could tell some of the new guys are like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that.
Holloway said it at the end of the game with Curbs and Jamie. They're like, what'd you make of playing with Robert Thomas? He goes, well, there's pucks coming at you. You just don't know when and where. Holloway a couple of times was standing in front of the net like, whoa, where'd that puck come from?
Oh, that's my guy. Okay.
Yeah, oh, okay, I got him here. You'll get it as you go. But he's one of the most underappreciated centermen in the game because not only does his offense provide you with the highlight reel plays, he's so good defensively. Yeah. Like, he should have been last year in the Selke Trophy conversation. If he gets the points up this year, I think he will be in the Selke Trophy conversation. He finished the game with 1 assist last night. I think it was on the power play. And it felt like a lot of people were like, oh, man, where was Robert Thomas? That top line may not have contributed. Man, they had like 6 shots on goal, I think, by the end of the game. Jake Neighbors was the net front presence. Holloway was a puck hound. And then you got Thomas as the playmaker. That's a line that I want to see them stick with because I'd be really curious if the chemistry can build. Because, man, you had 2 guys at the net at all times with Holloway and Neighbors. And you know Robert Thomas can make something out of nothing. If I've got 2 guys that aren't waiting on the sides, waiting for a pass to take a shot, if I got 2 guys that are going to the front of the net, man.
Dude, they're going to get some junk.
How many points do you think that one's going to score with 2 guys there?
Man. Okay. Philip Broberg.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I've been waiting for you to get to this one.
Yeah, baby. Like, I think, technically, here's what I think. And I'm an a-hole, so this is probably not something that they should do. But if Broberg kept that puck, he should sign one side, and then Dylan Holloway should sign the other side, and they should send it to Stan Bowman in Edmonton. And say, hey, buddy, thank you for the opportunity. Dudes. Yep. That guy's going to be money. That is a hell of a good player, man.
Yeah, Edmonton social media was very fun last night once Broberg scored that goal because they were like, are you kidding me? This guy? It was a hell of a shot. Like, we saw it in that preseason game, that Thursday game against Dallas where he chipped in and pinched in and he scored that goal right in front of the net. Last night he took a shot along the boards. And look, that doesn't happen without guys in front of the net, which is what Drew Bannister talks about. I don't know about you, but everything about what Broberg provided last night, and maybe it's because just you've lacked this for the longest time, his skating ability was excellent. Like, the speed, the size, the ability to puck handle through a mess and still get out of the zone with no problem. And then it felt like he and Justin Falk just kept building chemistry as that game went on. I think Broberg is that. I don't know if he's going to ever be a number 1. I don't know if he's ever going to be a top pair defenseman. But I can only go off of what the Edmonton Oilers beat writers were saying when that offer sheet happened. And 2 different guys, Mark Spector and Daniel Nugent-Bowman, who both covered the team for The Athletic and TSN, said, this guy's got top pairing ability. He's like, I don't know if he'll ever get there, but he's got top pairing ability. You saw it all last night. He killed plays with his size. He was able to move the puck and transition it out of their own zone because of his skating ability and speed. And then you saw the offense. And what I love about Broberg is Bannister wants his defenseman to chip in offensively. Like, he wants the weak side D to jump in and try and get pucks on net. Because if you're putting bodies in front, somebody's got to put it on. Man, if you got Broberg and Falk on one pair together that are both taking shots and just rifling them to the net and seeing what happens, by the end of this season, people are going to be like, what a steal Philip Broberg is for $4 million.
And to me, it all comes back with that kid where they say, well, he's only got X, Y, and Z of NHL experience. And I say, okay, but he got the regular gig in the goddamn Western Conference Finals.
Totally.
So, like, he was put in a high, I mean, you can't get any more high pressure. He did well. So, is to me, a little bit of this sort of, well, he's only had this much NHL experience is like, yeah, but when he did, he friggin' proved that he belonged.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple things here that I want to ask about. Zach Bolduc, what's happening there? Should we be alarmed? Because to me, Alex, if he is not going to play, he needs to go to the AHL. That dude needs to play every single day. So it went from seemingly him having this really tremendous camp to things kind of leveling off to him being sent down to the AHL, which I assume was probably because he had waivers that he could pass through, that sort of thing.
To navigate some of the salary stuff.
Sure, but and then he scratched yesterday, and this is happening while Brandon Saad is out.
Yeah, well, and that's why I think he's up here. If Saad or Sundqvist were both available, or one of them was available, he wouldn't even be here.
Okay,
because Bolduc had a good start to the camp. Kapanen had a better end of the camp, and I think that's why you saw Zach Bolduc become that 13th forward. I mean, even Bannister was talking about, like, look, this kid's going to be an everyday NHL player. There's just some things he still has to work on to get to that level. And when I heard those quotes from Bannister, I was like, okay, it's somebody who probably thinks he needs a little bit more reps in the AHL. Let's not forget with Bolduc, he started the year off in the AHL last season with an injury that kind of nagged him. And then he started his first year playing pro hockey, and it was a little slow out of the gate. He then picked up the pace a little bit more. I think he ended, 50 games in the AHL and had 9 goals. And you started to see the signs of it. But then, because the Blues were out of it and they needed somebody to move up because Jakub Vrana wasn't in that top 9 for them and they really didn't have guys panning out, Bolduc came up and took advantage of his opportunity. Yes, he learned the NHL level, but you were at the end of the season where you were somewhat competing for a roster spot, but It was that weird, like, hey, we don't have anybody else, so this is for you, and he capitalized on it. But now you come back and there's internal competition, and all of the weak spots that you have on the ice will be exposed if somebody outplays you. I personally think Bolduc's going to play in one of Thursday or Friday's game. One of the two you're going to get him in, because when you come back, I expect as long as Brandon Saad's wife has their baby, he's going to be playing that Tuesday opening night at Enterprise Center. And then with Sundqvist, it sounds like by Saturday, he might be ready to go in terms of reps with the team. He might be available Tuesday. At that time, Bolduc will be in the AHL because Bolduc will be playing top-line minutes because, as Armstrong said, if you're not a top-6 winger, we want you in the AHL working on it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But for me, since he's here, I would have liked to see him play because he's got the offense. I would have loved to see him play with either Jordan Kyrou or play on that third line with Joseph and Schenn. But Kapanen had a better camp, so I guess you can understand what they're trying to accomplish. I'm under the opinion that if Bolduc's here, he should be playing.
Kapanen is I want to pay him the due respect, but I mean, he's a serviceable NHL veteran.
He's a perfect plug-and-play player, which every team needs to have success. You need a guy who understands his role in terms of, hey, I might not be in the lineup tonight, but in 2 games, I might be in the lineup, and I need to go in there and play. And look, I thought Kapanen played well with Schenn and Joseph. That was a really consistent line for the Blues to where they threw him out there. You knew what you were getting. Matthew Joseph had a couple of moments defensively that it was like, whoa, where'd that come from? Mm-hmm. So I think that line did exactly what they wanted to do. And if I was just to look forward, Saad comes back. Saad's probably playing with Pavel Buchnevich and Jordan Kyrou, which means Texier bounces down to your 3rd or 4th line. And then somebody else moves up. And so I don't know if Kapanen's still in the lineup, but Kapanen is the perfect player to put in there. You know what he's going to give you: speed, veteran presence, and right decision-making. I just think what we saw in preseason was like, can he get the offense for you? That one felt like we saw that last year.
Well, and also, too, I guess with Kapanen, you know the person, so he knows, like you said, hey, man, it might be a couple games before I get in.
Totally.
But he's not going to be somebody that's going to be pissing and moaning in the locker room.
Totally.
He knows that's his role.
Yeah, that's the competition. And when Kapanen's not playing, you do the work in practice, and then if somebody has an off night, you put Kapanen in, and then there's that internal competition of, okay, I'm getting in for the first time in 4 games. Now I got to make sure I stay in this lineup. Mm-hmm. And that's what I feel like the internal competition does for the Blues, and why it's good to have 3 or 4 guys that you look at and you say they should be at the NHL right now. Like, everybody's upset that Bolduc's not here. I think it's a good thing for both Bolduc and Kapanen. that he's competing for one of those roster spots. It's better for him to go in the AHL and you get somebody else who can compete with a Kapanen or a Nathan Walker to get in the lineup. But think about it. When Saad and Sundqvist are back, you're going to have potentially a Texier, a Kapanen, and a Walker fighting to get in the lineup every single night. And then you don't have to worry about a Bolduc in the minors because he can focus on his game as being the top guy. And you got 3 or 4 NHL veterans who know how to play that role. And then when they get their chance, they create more competition.
All right, so if you get Saad and Sonny back, and then you send Bolduc down, who else?
You either got to make a decision on, do you send a defenseman down or do you send a Kapanen or a Walker through waivers? Because you'll have 14 forwards and 8 defensemen, and you got to be at 23 total players, 2 goaltenders, 21 position players.
Are you surprised that Scott Perunovich is still here?
A little bit. I thought Tucker earned that 8th spot after that Thursday night game against the Dallas Stars. It feels as if Perunovich is here because they still believe there's offense in that tank.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part for Scott Perunovich is,
when are you going to play?
Yeah, who are you going in?
Who are you going to take out?
You're going to take out either Suter or Kessel, but then P.O. Joseph goes in. So it felt a lot like, I don't know if we want to lose him through waivers right now, and I don't know how the salary cap situation works, because if you were to put him on waivers and a team claimed him, timing-wise, did they have the opportunity to put him in the AHL? I don't believe so. When the NHL starts, if you claim him, he's on your NHL roster, and you can't put him through to the AHL. So maybe they feel like they'll be able to sneak him through if they decide to put him through waivers on Saturday, because another team's already got their 23-man roster, and do they want to put a player through waivers so that they can bring in Perunovich?
Right.
It's that roster management type of game that teams play. If it's me, once Saad and Sundqvist come back, I think you have to send Perunovich down, because do you want to risk? Walker goes through waivers, somebody's going to claim him.
Yeah.
I know he's a fourth liner to people, but watch what he did and how he impacted that game. Somebody will claim that.
That dude could do that on any team and be an asset to any team.
And if you're trying to protect your younger players so that they don't have to be forced into the NHL, is it better to have a Kapanen as a 13th or 14th forward, or is it better to have a Bolduc or a Dean as a 13th or 14th forward? So then it comes down to your defensemen. And if you like Suter and Kessel, who were fine last night, and you really like P.O. Joseph, he seemingly was the 7th defenseman from the get-go. Do you risk losing one of those defensemen if they're really not going to see much playing time unless there's an injury?
Man, all right. So a couple things real quick, and then unfortunately I gotta wrap this up.
You gotta do radio.
I gotta go be on the radio. So
I gotta go make sure my car's parked.
So the Blues have the San Jose Sharks tomorrow night. When you are watching a potential budding superstar in Macklin Celebrini, in Connor Bedard, obviously these kids are, I think Celebrini is 19, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Will be his second NHL game. When you are watching someone like that that's so young, but the ceiling is supposedly so high, what are you looking at? What are you looking for?
For me, it's hockey sense. Like, does he have the hockey sense to make the right play? Like, of course, the tools are there. That's why he was drafted first overall. Like, I remember this first season of McDavid. I think his first game was against the Blues. I remember watching that. It's like, oh, okay. You saw the speed. You saw the playmaking ability. Like, you knew the kid was going to be a stud. Last year with Connor Bedard, you saw the speed. You saw the shot. And you're like, yeah, this is going to be there. The tools are going to be there for Celebrini. With those younger players, it's always, do you make the right decision? Because we've seen guys at times to where it's like, oh, I've got the skill to get me out of this situation. And then you don't. It gets picked off, and the next thing you know, it's a breakaway for the other team because you made a mistake. For Celebrini, it's like you're going to be watching and saying, all of those tools, are they there? But then it's like, are you making the pro decision? Because college hockey is different than even the AHL or the NHL. Like, you've got to make the right decision so you don't put your team in a bad spot. And mostly these guys that get selected first overall, they know that.
Right.
They know that they got to make the right play, the smart play. But at times, you're like, oh, this should get me out of this situation. What's interesting about him compared to, like, go back when Nolan Patrick was, remember the Philadelphia Flyers? I think they drafted him first overall. That was the year Makar was selected. But Nolan Patrick was this big power forward, and everyone was like, oh, this kid's going to score, like, 50 goals because he's just a net front presence. Those guys are a lot harder to predict in the NHL because guess who's bigger than you? Defensemen who've been in the league 7, 8, 9 years. When you got guys like Bedard and Celebrini who are tinier, but they've got the speed and the talent to stick handle out of bad situations. Those are the ones that are just wild cards of like, is this going to be a superstar or is this kid going to take some time to get to the level you expect him to?
Sure. All right. A couple things here real quick. So Jeremy Swayman gets the bag.
Yeah, makes sense.
So Boston has their goaltender. That situation for a brief second looked like it might go sideways.
Totally.
But they got their guy, which is good because watching Capasalo last night.
Yeah. What, are you a little surprised they started him? Like, I get that you just got the contract done. Don't try and sell me the bag of goods that Jeremy Swayman wasn't ready to play.
Because I thought that he had been training with BC, with Boston College or something like that.
You know that these guys are training the moment that they're eliminated from the playoffs, so you know he's conditioned. And what does he need to work with your team for? He's been a part of this roster for the last, 5 seasons.
The only thing I will say, Alex, is that if I were a Boston Bruin fan and he started that game and then got hurt, I would have lost my freaking mind.
Yeah.
And you know, that could happen in game 2 when he plays just the same. Right. But I just feel like
after
it was
you
maybe
get the contract,
trying to be a little bit more cautious.
Yeah.
And then tell me about this goaltender in New York, Shesterkin, who apparently did he turn down a deal valued at something like $11 million a year, and they think he wants 12 and a half.
Yeah, which if you're Shesterkin,
you can get. He's going to get it.
You're one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League right now, so it makes sense. Dude, that is a bold strategy to try and take when you get $11 million in front of you. Does somebody give you $12 million in the open market?
Absolutely.
Probably, because
it's not going to be a good team.
And do you want to go take that chance for the next 8 years to where a team's going to be cap strung because you're making $12 million and they can't build a roster around you? Or you go to a Rangers team at $11 million because the Rangers are in a rough spot.
Dude, they got a lot of guys pending, right?
And they don't have they got 4 RFAs, I think, including Shesterkin. So if Shesterkin gets $12 million, they're going to be so far above the salary cap, even with the raise next season, that they're not going to be able to re-sign Lafreniere, Capo Caco, and Keandre Miller unless they trade away a Panarin, a Zibanejad, a Kreider, or a Verhaeghe, I think is the other one that's on their roster, if I'm not mistaken. But these guys got no trade clauses. So you are putting your team in a tough spot.
So really, him driving the price up like that to reset the goalie market, which is essentially what everybody is saying that he's doing, he is going to end up handcuffing
his team,
the Rangers.
Yep. And I've had a couple of people because I've been curious about it, and they've said well, maybe he doesn't want to be in New York. Why would you not want to be in New York? You're with the Rangers, man, and you're one of the best goalies in the league. But some guys have preferences where they want to play. Some guys want to be in certain states, be closer to family, be closer to friends. But even so, man, you are taking a gamble if you're getting $11 million offered to you and hoping that another team's able to give you $12 or more million. And you got to hope that you have an incredible season, too.
Okay, last thing, and I'm very, very sorry, but this just popped into my mind as I was getting ready to wrap it up. Why, in Jesus' name, is Robin Lehner's salary, why is it completely wiped for Vegas this year? Why do these friggin' guys keep getting this goddamn free pass with this crap?
That's what everybody's been saying. I have no idea why. I have no idea.
See, I thought that you were going to say something that was made
legendary?
sense, with the that made sense, in the rules, hey, this is why, blah 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 blah. But it doesn't seem like it's that.
No, I mean, you get LTIR salary cap relief if a guy's on LTIR, but I think they've used that already because he was on it throughout last season.
Yes.
I have no idea why. Unless there's some type of behind closed doors stuff with Robin Lehner to where it's hey, look, this guy's not coming back to the NHL, which it doesn't seem like he's going to be coming back. Maybe that's why they get their cap relief. The real question is going to be, okay, so if they got that, other teams are going to be hey, what about us?
Right.
Can we use that as well? Because Colorado hasn't had Gabe Landeskog for a full season. Do they get that again this season? It was a really weird thing. It doesn't look good for Vegas. Because every year it's, Vegas, they're going to use the cap.
And then also, too, I saw the thing yesterday that the Athletic put out, Mark Stone. We know everybody doesn't believe in us. Everybody underestimates. Nobody thinks, shut up. I want to see somebody knock that D-bag into the 13th row. I freaking hate him. And honestly, at first, with Vegas, I thought that it was such a great story, and I loved the building and all that stuff. And now I freaking hate them.
Yep. Well, they've I think Vegas has soured a lot of people's excitement with them because they trade these guys away and look, they do it right. They find ways to bring in the next best player, but they've traded away so many fan favorites that it's like, man, you have like no. It's weird how it works because hockey fans get attached to teams that like show the players their respect. In other sports, it's like, yeah, who cares? Just bring in the next best guy. Vegas is doing that, but it's like when you moved on from Reeves, when you moved on from Fleury, and then Jonathan Marchessault, it's like, man, you're moving on from all of these guys to bring in new faces, and at some point, it hurts your team. And I'm sure a lot of it too is the salary cap manipulation. Like you got to find a way to make yourself the underdog, and I guess that's Mark Stone's way of doing it. But we all know what's going to happen. Mitch Marner's going to get traded at the deadline to the Vegas Golden Knights. We're going to be like, how did this happen? Well, they had salary cap space available to them. You just have to bank on it.
Mitch Marner to Vegas?
Why not, Donnie? They've done it. They did it with Mark Stone. They did it with Jack Eichel. They did it with Tomas Hertl. Or not Hertl. Yeah, Tomas Hertl. They've done it with everybody. Why?
Man, I was in a way better mood when this started.
Why not us? That's what Vegas is saying right now. Sorry, Donnie.
That's all right.
We did actually a pretty positive show. And
we did. Well, listen, first and foremost, we got to give a shout-out to our buddy Jeremy Rutherford. He did everything that he could to join us on the podcast today. You are the absolute best. Everybody, we will be back next week with more episodes of the Last Minute Blues podcast for our homeboy, Jeff Burton, who we miss so much. Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango saying